This is Steve Zeltzer. I'm a candidate of Rescue Pacifica, and some of our other candidates are here today. And we call this emergency speak out here in front of KPFA because we have a lot of concerns about the conduct of the election at KPFA and Pacifica. And we believe that there needs to be a democratic election at Pacifica, and that all candidates should have equal rights, and also candidates should have the right to be on the air with carts so the listeners of KPFA and the other stations can hear who the candidates are. And the reality is that like in the last election when we ran, the station was not going to put on radio carts, so the listeners, the members of KPFA, would not be able to hear who the candidates were. We think that that's a real problem. We have to have transparency, and it should be a community radio station. It should be the listeners and the community hearing what's going on. So we decided to call this press conference today, or meeting, and lo and behold, today we got a message from the National Election Supervisor saying that they are going to have a forum, and where some of the candidates can speak. But that's not the same as carts, but it's a victory to have at least a forum on Zoom, and we hope people look at the forum and listen to the candidates. We believe that KPFA and Pacifica is facing a financial crisis, which it is. It's desperate financially, but also the programming has to be relevant to people, and it has to be an activist network and station, which it isn't. And in order to do that, we have elections. We've been fighting for elections and fighting to preserve the KPFA local station board. Unfortunately, the majority of the local station board here, who call themselves the protectors, are for corporatizing the station. They really don't want any power. They don't want a finance committee. They don't even want an evaluation of management here. And we have a real problem with that, because that's the responsibility of the local station board. It hasn't been carried out. So if you go to rescuepacifica.net, you can see what our program is. And we're going to have some speakers not only from here, but also from Texas, where there's a whole struggle to protect KPFT in Houston to make sure that all the candidates there are able to speak. So our first candidate here and is local station board member Lisa Milos. So welcome, Lisa.
I'm a member of the KPFA local station board, Elizabeth Milos. I'm also running for re-election. The shenanigans that we're talking about go back go back far. First of all, the Pacifica National Board retroactively canceled the elections on October 20th of last year. And when they did that, they also decided to extend their own terms, their 6-year bylaws, the 6-year terms, which are limited by the bylaws to 6 years. So let's just get something clear. The people that are on the PMB now and on most of the LSBs now are basically people who have been, most of them, there's a sector of them, a group of them have been termed out. And so they're making decisions, including, for example, KPFA PMB Director Akio Tanaka, who supposedly should have been termed out. He is now also chair of the elections committee, okay? And they chose the national election supervisor when she was finally hired late in the game, right? The only reason that they actually ended up having to have this election now was because there was an actual lawsuit regarding the termed out issue, and the judge just said that they needed to have an election. But when the judge said that they needed to have an election, he didn't mean to just have any old goddamn election. He means to have a real election, right? Well, that's not what's happening. What's happening is that, for example, the National Election Supervisor chose somebody as the elections inspector, whereas in previous years she would choose at least 2 in order to provide some level of neutrality or some level of equanimity. She chose 1 person, and the person that she chose, Craig Dunkerley, is also the chair of the Community Advisory Board, who was picked by Carol Wolfley, the secretary of the LSB, to be a member of the Community Advisory Board. And he himself participated as candidate at the last Community Advisory Board election in basically election fraud, because the secretary, instead of using the PNB mandated single transferable vote system to elect the CAB members, the community advisory members, they chose the yes-no vote, which basically ensured that the protectors could have only 4 of their members on the community advisory board and left out 8 community members that had been nominated appropriately, left them completely out of the process. The community advisory board is supposed to be allowing at least 22 people on it, according to the Corporation for Broadcasting guidelines. Now, what's happening here, and I'd like to be able to get on the phone with Adriana Cameron. She's a PMB director, and she's also running for KPFT. She has been documenting what has been going on over there in Houston. Let's start by saying that in Houston they have a general manager, Sandy Weinman, who refused to give up his LSB seat when he was seated as a general manager, and has been usurping that seat with voting rights while being general manager, which is also a bylaws violation. So, I'm going to see if we can contact, we're going to get Adriana on the line so that we can have somebody, and I have more to say, but I'm going to allow other people to speak first. And I'd like to introduce right now a new member of our endorsement list, Padma, and he is also running for KPFA LSB, and I'd like to give him a chance to speak.
My name is Padma, and I'm a longtime KPFA supporter. It's been many years, and I have just been listening to the radio, and I've been impressed that in a country where we talk about democracy all the time, it's unfortunate that all the main newspapers in this country seem to practice a lot of omissions, and sometimes even lies. And so when I found KPFA, it was like, gosh, this is like an oasis in a desert. And I've been listening to them ever since. But recently, I've been getting a little bit concerned because what I've started hearing on the radio are things that are more pro-war. And I was thinking, this is not the Washington Post, this is not a war radio. Why are these people pushing the war now? And then I decided, you know, this can't go on, and I decided to join and stand for elections, and that's why I'm here. And now that I'm here, I've met a whole group of people in KPFA who are telling me all these stories about what's been going on all these years, and it's scary. Unfortunately, the details are mind-numbing, and the ordinary listener would have to spend hours to understand what's going on. So in a way, the people who are trying to co-opt this station and turn it into another war radio have this advantage on their side. They understand that most listeners don't have the time to go into the details of years of manipulation, but that's what's happening. And this is the only free radio in this area that I listen to that I can find. Now, we cannot afford to lose this, because if we want to have a democracy, we need to have a voice. And believe me, as an individual, you have no voice at all. The only time you have any democratic rights is when you go and vote. And that is certainly not enough, because there's a lot of billionaires who are paying a lot of people money to come out there and vote for their causes. Not only are the billionaires funding these people and the newspapers, unfortunately, as we know, the CIA is widely involved in a lot of things. Like if you listen to the guy who started Wikipedia, he has said that of all the people, of all the IP addresses that are always changing the stories on Wikipedia, these are IP addresses that are coming from Langley. The CIA understands what it is to fight for the battle of hearts and minds, and this is what it's turning out to be. Today in America, it's a polarized nation. But not only is it a polarized nation, it's a confused nation. When you can't even look at the Democrats and say, well, these are the people I support. How can you support Democrats who are pushing for wars? What has happened to the Democratic Party? Well, there are progressives, right? And then there are the moderate Democrats. You know, there are people like Manchin who's a billionaire, and he owns coal mines, and he's pushing his side of the story of how we need more coal mines so that he can get rich. So we look to the progressive politicians, but unfortunately, even they are under a lot of pressure, because they need to be re-elected. And unfortunately, money rules. In this nation, money flows like blood in the veins of a human being, and all of these people are thirsting for that blood because that is their survival. And without it, they have no voice at all. So they need to be in power, and to be in power, they need to be re-elected. To be re-elected, they need the dollars that comes from these billionaires. And so you have the situation, as you do with the politicians, you have that here in KPFA, where you have people who are employed in KPFA. So let me tell you that in KPFA, there are some people who get a salary and a lot of people who do not. There are a lot of volunteers who actually are 70% apparently, who are running most of the things that go on that makes a show possible. So these people who are getting salaries, what do you think their main concern would be? Even if they didn't have an ideological basis, they would have been concerned about their life, their cars, their children, their finances. And if you look at NPR or any of these public radios that are getting lots of money from these big foundations that are built by billionaires who have their own ideas of what is right and what is wrong, you'll find that those people in NPR get a very good salary. And I'm sure that there are people here who would like that as well, because when it comes to paying your bills, money rules. So what we have here is you have to compare the two sides. The sides that do not get paid, that are coming here on their own time, on their own money, to try and spread democracy through this radio, to bring light to all the horrible things that are going on in this world in the name of the US citizens. It is US interests. And by the way, when they talk about US interests, they are not talking about US citizens. They are talking about US corporations. And that's how it has been all these years. Because the corporations are the ones who pay the politicians to lead. And so these leaders, they know who they have to be loyal to. As they say, you have to invest in America. Buy a politician. That's what's going on. So my point is, I'm here and I'm so glad that I found a group of people here, like-minded, who are standing on their own feet, on their own dime, trying to make a change. And they have continuously come out all these years to fight and not let KPFA become another NPR funded by some billionaire. So I thank you for listening to me, and I want to stand for the board elections because I'm concerned about our democracy. Thank you.
Yeah, while I'm awaiting a call from Adriana Cameron, who was a PMB director from KPFT, I think I should mention a few things that had happened, giving you guys a little bit of a background on this. KPFT, like I mentioned before, has had this problem with its GM. Adriana Cacenaves has also had a lot of difficulties at the PNB level because as any director, she's been demanding some documentation that she is entitled to, and they're refusing to give it to her, like signed contracts and things like that. But one of the things that we wanted to mention regarding what's happening at KPFT, which is really a big flagrant violation, is that they left out a whole group of candidates that are not New Day, that do not support these past two attempts at changing the bylaws. And the way that they did it was basically there was computer glitches all throughout in order to get the nominations going. This is Adriana, so we'll have her here with us. Hola, Adriana. Ya, te voy a poner ahora para que converse, porque ya te presenté, ¿ok? Puedes hablar ahora. Espérate, déjame ponerte en speakerphone. Okay, let's hope she can hear it. Can you hear? Habla.
Yes, I can hear. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to
Tell
ask
us,
me something?
tell us, Adriana, what exactly is going on at KPFT? What you showed me and what you've been expressing. What exactly is happening there?
Obviously, something is really, really wrong. They are disenfranchising a whole group of candidates we were running, even one of the candidates, I don't even know. I know that was there, but it's not somebody that I know that nominated me, and I nominated him too, but we didn't have any option to communicate with anybody because we don't have that information. We never have information about each other, and we could not communicate. They told us that we didn't have enough nominations and rejected us, like not having enough nomination, but that wasn't true. They asked for a list of nominators, and I sent a list of 30 nominators. And a few days later, I received an email, like a week later, from the National Election Supervisor telling me that I was rejected because I have only 13 nominators. In my case, I was lucky because she mentioned which ones were my nominators, and very clear, I could immediately send an email to her immediately telling her that something was wrong, because I have proof, I have copy of two of my nominators that were not there, that sent my nominations to the NES by email by July 6th. It means obviously was wrong that they took me off the of the elections. A few days later, she, like a week later or something like that, she sent another email telling me that okay, she reconsidered and she put me like a candidate. The problem is not that I'm still running, I'm a candidate, but the whole slate, the whole group of people were disenfranchised. We are not New Day people. We are, long-time Pacifica and KPFT and LSP and KPFT supporters, and we are working during years with KPFT, and we were all disenfranchised. Some of them they were not lucky, with in quotes, right? Lucky enough, when they received the rejections, they didn't even tell, the NES didn't even tell them how many nominators they have or who those nominators were. Then those people didn't have the option to contest it. In my case, I was lucky because I have proof that nobody knew, because some of the people that she didn't put at the beginning, like my nominators, they PCC me when they send an email nominating me. That's why I have proof. I mean, this doesn't make any sense. The National Election Supervisor, people are saying, well, we didn't, candidate didn't fill the nominations on time. I have proved to everybody that by July 4th was not even one candidate at KPFT that had enough nominations. Then the National Election Supervisor sent an email to the chair of our board with the list of people, and you can see there that nobody had 15 nominations. Some of them have 1, 2, 7, but that's it. Then the chair of the LSB, Susan Young, she sent an email to some of the candidates in that list, asking to nominate other people, and asking to contact specific people that are part of the New Day, like Teresa Allen, said my person, to contact those people to know what to do. Obviously, immediately their super majority in our LSB went there and nominate those people. Obviously, they didn't nominate any of us. We were seven people totally the same franchise.
Yeah, and also Susan Young, when she sent that email, she sent it out, and it was addressed to all KPFT candidates. And I'm saying something. The email said that it was addressed to all KPFT candidates, but it wasn't sent to all KPFT candidates. And at the same time, she said that she had sent it as secretary of the elections committee, not as the chair of the LSB, but she sent it basically, if she sent it as secretary, then she's violating the rules, because first of all, why would, both the NES and her are violating the rules. The NES should not have sent it only one list of one station if she's sending it to her as secretary. And also, Susan Young, as secretary, should not have sent it to the should not have sent those instructions, because she has no rights to send any instructions to anybody. I mean,
absolutely, and what that shows that at KPFT, the only reason all the candidates, including myself, I have some in my 30 nominators, I have listeners, but in the people that she accepts, and the nominators practically for all the other candidates, that shows that it's an inside job. They are not members. Most of them are or LNB members or part of the New Day people, the New Day group. Some of them you have there. You have Lyndon Foley. He was the head of the New Day people, right? That we are trying to take down the foundation. Now he's running. He's part of that slate.
Yeah, that's...
I know perfectly what happened with that.
Yeah, and also is KPFT having any carts out? She said no carts, right?
No carts at all. Nobody, at least I never heard anything. Nobody heard any of the carts. And when you want your membership being really, you want the membership being supporting if you want the elections, the first thing that you need to do is communicate with them. How the members, how unfair it is. First of all, the website have a bunch of problems. Everybody know that the website wasn't working correctly. Because a lot of people, and I have the emails from people saying, we try to go there, we cannot sign ourselves as nominators or as candidates. One of the people that is disenfranchised, she never was in the list of possible candidates. It means nobody could nominate her because she wasn't there.
And you guys were taken off of the website on 6/30, right? By June 30th, none of you were on the website.
Exactly.
So there was no way for you to be able to get nominees between 6/30 and 7/6, which was the actual deadline date.
Absolutely. We were not in there. She was asking for us to send things, but it wasn't possible for us to go to the website and punch in there anything. That's why what we told people is, please, what you have to do, in July, obviously July 4th, we have some of us in that list, right?
Right.
But 4 of our people were not in that list. And then, because of all the problems and people couldn't, I received phone calls and I sent the NES the information saying we have a lot of people saying that they have problems to get into the website, to nominate or to be candidate, and their emails are not being answered. And then the question, the big problem here is, we are the people, please send emails to the NES. Because obviously the only way that we can record that we have people that are nominating us. And the irregularities are, Emilia. We know very clear that this is, and like I said before, is the worst part. They are asking now, is the height of hypocrisy. They are asking people, and you see the emails back and forth, they are asking some of these disenfranchised candidates that are being unfairly not allowed to run. They are asking for those people to put money to pay for this election. It's like they are making fun of you.
Yeah,
When
it does.
They ask you to pay for something, they, oh, don't worry, you shut up, you are not allowed to run, but put your money in here.
That seems to be the modus operandi. The only time that they really care about anything is when they're sending out emails asking for money, and that's the only time they care. And they made a big deal about the fact that they needed to have $11,000 by Monday, the 7th of August, in order for the election to go through. And I sent an email saying, you know what, let's postpone the damn thing because this is not working.
But we need to question more things there. Trust me, and some things, you know, I'm a PFA member and some things I cannot say openly.
Right.
But you know, I have more questions, and I hope that the membership and the people running ask questions. How much is being the people paid? How many people are there? Who are the ones being paid?
Right.
They are talking about that because of some delays. The same people that are being paid are charging more because of the delays.
Right, right.
You know,
But they're also using the excuse of the court case, saying that they have to have the election now during these timelines. But they've already violated so many damn rules. One of the main rules that they violated, which was a question was asked at the 6/17 meeting that we had with the NES, is where is the full roster of all of the members of the LSB and the length of time that each are serving and the seats that are available? There's no main roster.
Exactly, and it's worse than that, Elizabeth. It's worse than that. I mean, we have the same people, you know, that are trying that extend illegally their terms as directors. The bylaws say very clear that is under no circumstances you can be more than 6 consecutive years in any like a delegate in any. It's very clear. They use a bunch of excuses to perpetuate themselves more than a year, and more than that. Now they say that they are following the judge in California directions. This is a sham election. The judge didn't ask for a fake election or a sham election. The judge asked for an election. An election needs to be fair and need to follow all the ruls.
That's right.
It's not running to consolidate, you know, the power that they have.
Right. And the judge also enjoined those members not to violate the bylaws, and they're already violating the bylaws. So yeah.
Absolutely. And they say ridiculous things, like for example, they said at some point in time that they cannot change the timeline for elections. That is a lie, because one of the bylaws articles, they said that the only ones that can change the time frame for the elections are the PMB with 2/3.
Right.
Because if any circumstance, in this case, they use excuse, oh no, that is in the hands of the NES. That is a lie.
That's a lie.
The law never said that the time frame for the elections need to be set by the NES. That is being said by the PFB. The NES can accommodate the rest, and we need to follow a bunch of things, but they are violating everything that they want. And in these cases, oh no, we cannot violate that. This is a lie. This is a sham election.
Yeah.
This is just to consolidate the New Day people and the New Day power. That's all that it is.
Thank you, Adriana. Thank you so much, Adriana, for your very complete report. And we're here to support you guys. That's why we're here. That's why we're standing here and exposing all the sham elections, because they're sending out emails asking desperately for money when they're violating member rights as well. Yeah. Thank you so much.
One of the things that we have to address as well that's happening on KPFT in Houston is the black and brown programs have been removed from the broadcast part of the station, and they've been put in the digital channel. Why would they do that? Houston has a large black, brown, Asian population. Why would they move those programs from the broadcast part of the station? We think it's part of the discrimination that's going on and has a long history in Houston. Houston should be growing. They should be reaching out to the black and brown community. They should be reaching out to working class people. Here at KPFA, I had a program here called Work Week, the only labor program in the Bay Area, radio labor program, and it was removed by the previous manager, Quincy McCoy. He said, we want to go in another direction. This is what Quincy McCoy said. 1 day notice. Have they replaced it? Have they got a labor show on KPFA? Hell no. They say they're for working people, but they won't have a labor show on KPFA. We think that that really shows that they're not really honest about what they're doing. We need more labor programming at KPFA, more working class programming of the issues that workers face. Another candidate who's not able to be here is a postal worker. He's a delegate to the San Francisco Labor Council, Richard Stone, and he made a statement by audio about his campaign and what he wants to do if he's elected.
Stone, a current LSP candidate who once served on the Community Advisory Board from 2015 through 2018, and a one-time LSP candidate. I'm once again running for the LSP in part to help re-establish a program council in order to create an avenue of transparency in both the formation of new programs as well as a fair and balanced process in the cancellation of any currently existing programs. For example, the show Twitwit Radio was canceled in 2019 without the program's director, George Coates, able to speak up or have any due process in defense of the decision of his program being eliminated. Also an issue with me was the way that the current CAB was reformed after a roughly 2-year absence, done in a fashion that belied the originally sanctioned method known as single transfer voting. The result of the yes-no line vote that was used created a result where all appointed CAB members were exclusively those in the New Day camp. The CAB as a whole should reflect a more diverse membership, reflecting a compensatory factor which would allow previous CAB nominees that were denied a nomination in 2022 to be reconsidered in a way that utilizes the single transfer voting method. Both the formation of a program council and the second chance for CAB nominees, including myself if not elected to the LSP, or anyone else denied appointment 22 due to the aforementioned wrongful nomination process. These are critical elements that I would be willing to undertake whether elected as an LSP member or if I were given a second chance for potential appointment to the current CAB. Holding either an LSP or CAB position would allow me to carry out my commitment to a station I hold dear to my heart in spite of the internal personal struggles, whether existential or actual in nature.
Also, again, reiterate, we called this Speak Out today because we wanted to demand that there be radio carts at KPFA in this election. There are radio carts in KPFK in Los Angeles. They have town hall forums in New York at WBAI. Why at KPFA, which is basically the largest station in the network, but they can't have radio carts? They can't have radio carts? What are they afraid of? They're required, the manager, to make reports to the listeners. Has the manager made any reports to the listeners? No. Why is that? Why can't the manager make a report to the listeners? You have to ask, where is the transparency? Where is the honesty to the membership of KPFA and the listeners of KPFA? We want to bring back KPFA as a community radio station. We want to get rid of corporate programming. By corporate programming, I'm talking about people like Ian Masters, who has been given 9 hours a week. Now, there are many programmers around the country and in San Francisco could be on those 9 hours. Why do they pick Ian Masters, who mostly has white guests, many of them CIA, ex-CIA and FBI agents, as his guests? He's talking about how we can make imperialism better. How we can make Zionism better. This is Ian Masters. I mean, what kind of propaganda are we getting at KPFA? KPFA was established as an anti-war station for pacifism against war, yet what you have on many hours of the day are people like Ian Masters, Brian Edward Teegert, about how we can have better military operations. He just had a program in Niger this morning at KPFA. And did he talk about the role of French imperialism in Niger? No. Didn't even ask that. I mean, the fact of the matter is the people of Africa, not just Niger, but many countries, the Congo, are being exploited by countries for their natural resources. U.S. has a base in Niger. I mean, the U.S. has over 800 bases. Did he ask about the bases in Africa during his discussion with his guest? Hell no. Why are there over 800 bases, U.S. bases around the world? Are we protecting democracy in Niger? Are we protecting democracy in Okinawa? Are we protecting democracy anywhere in the world? I don't think so. We're protecting U.S. multinationals, corporations. Those are the kind of things we need to talk about on KPFA. And unfortunately, more and more of the time at KPFA is being spent by propagandists who support U.S. imperialism, who support the multinationals, who say that the United States is doing good things, we're really for peace. Hell no. Hell no. The United States is not for peace in Niger. The United States is not for peace in Ukraine. The United States is not for peace in any country. They make money for war. The military-industrial complex, which is profiting from these wars around the world, there's a drive for profit for more wars. You're not going to hear that from Brian Edward Teegert. You're not going to hear it from Ian Masters, because they actually support the U.S. military machine. And that's the reality, sad reality, and that's why we have to have a change in the KPFA LSB.
We're already violating the bylaws in the fact that they didn't even get local election supervisors. A lot of the computer glitches may have been corrected if they had gotten local election supervisors. They're saying there wasn't enough money. Well, apparently there was $72,000 that was set aside to pay the national election supervisor, but she never made out a call to people to become volunteers to help be local election supervisors. She never made out a call to make sure that the election inspector or advisor would be more than one person. Also, what's going on at KPFA is there's a lot of confusion among listeners, because on the one hand they show this facade of being very progressive and left and everything like that, and there are some programs on KPFA which I really like. I mean, I'm almost afraid of saying which programs I like, because I don't want them to become targets based on the fact that I like them. You know, I'm not saying that I'm not important, but the fact is that I was expelled by this supermajority on the KPFA LSB on October 29th of last year, and then I was reinstated on January 5th because the expulsion was completely wrong. There was no basis for it, and so those were a few months that I was off of the board. But they do witch hunts and they do character assassinations. For example, they attacked and they took off, they removed the chair of the KPFK, or they tried to remove the chair of the KPFK, Ziri Rideau. KPFK was in Los Angeles was the only one that did not abide by the PNB rule that they had set when they extended the 6-year terms. She replaced those 6-year terms and filled the seats with the runners-ups, which was what should have been done throughout the network. But they removed her, as well as removing the treasurer, who was all who were duly elected by the members, and she was also duly elected as a PNB director. And so there was several months where there was two KPFKs meeting, the PNB one, which didn't even have enough quorum to make any decisions at all, and the one that was being run by the duly elected chair, which was Ziri. But they have sent out, they basically tried to do a character assassination against her, just like they tried against Adriana as well, Adriana Cameron. So, and they did it against me. They created this type of ethics committee that resembled more of a House Un-American Activities thing. And precisely the person who was reading the charges against me at the time, Sherry Gendelman, is the president of Pacifica Safety Net, which was trying to get Pacifica into receivership during 4 lawsuits which were dismissed. She was also the person who sent in to the Federal Communications Commission the petition to the Federal Communications Commission, the federal government, to take away the license of WBAI, which is more of a $20 million asset for Pacifica, could be a $20 million loss of that asset, imported asset. So what I'm trying to say here is that members and listeners should really pay attention. There is what's called, unfortunately, an imperialist, there's what's called an imperialist, quote-unquote, left. And that group, that section, the imperialist, so quote-unquote left, are the ones that are telling us that Joe Biden is a good guy, okay? The same Joe Biden that wants to give chump change of $10,000 credit or $10,000 for students so that they don't have to pay $10,000 of their $30,000 or $40,000 student debts. He's the same guy that as Senator of Delaware, when he put the bankruptcy bill, he's the same one that didn't allow the student debt to be discharged. So we're talking about trillions of dollars of debt that this next generation have, among them my son, who's 33 years old, and he's offering this chump change of $10,000 and then backtracks. That's the person that we're supposed to be supporting? That's what supposedly is a good guy? That's what you're hearing on KPFA nowadays. That's what they are. They're an imperialist left. Thank you. Quote, left.
So the last point I want to talk about at KPFA is the issue of the journalists, protecting journalists, because we at Rescue Pacifica tried to support Julian Assange and endorse a call for his freedom. Now you would think that KPFA would want to support that. Julian Assange has been in prison in Britain, maybe facing extradition to the United States. What was his crime? Well, he's charged with espionage, but his real crime, and he's not even an American citizen, he was charged with espionage, his real crime is he exposed, or he released the documents that showed a video that the United States was murdering journalists in Iraq. That was his crime. Now, have the people who murdered those journalists been held responsible for murdering journalists? Hell no. But they're going after Julian Assange. So what happened when we raised the issue of KPFA supporting Julian Assange? This local station board, which call themselves the Protectors, said, we can't support Julian Assange because that's not the job of a radio station. That's not a job of a radio station. And the manager said, we're not a political party. How can we support Julian Assange? So that was for another journalist here at KPFA, Frank Sterling. But the fact of the matter is Pacifica did endorse the freedom of Julian Assange. This station management and the local station board majority, which we're fighting, refused to do that. The same with Mumia Abu-Jamal. They refused to support the release of Mumia Abu-Jamal. They said, we can't do that. This is what a station should be doing, which calls itself vigilant for free speech. They say, vigilant for free speech. Why aren't they supporting journalists as vigilant for free speech? And the latest really tragedy and disgrace is a journalist at KPFA, Frank Sterling, who does Full Circle, who's been covering the thank you very much. Has been covering the racist Antioch police. He was attacked by them, physically assaulted, and it turns out that these police have a history of racism and texts and that kind of thing, attacking blacks and browns, killing them. Well, we brought up Rescue Pacifica, that the local station board endorsed and called for the dropping of the charges against Frank Sterling. And the same local station board majority, the so-called Protectors, said we can't support the call for the dropping of charges against Frank Sterling. What the hell is going on? Who do these people represent? They won't even support a journalist at KPFA who's covering this racist police. And one of them, Sharon Adams, who they appointed as treasurer, actually said the police were right. You should read the Richmond newspaper, which was supported by the Herald, and get your information from there. So, I mean, what kind of people that we have at KPFA that would defend the police, the Richmond police, against a journalist at Antioch, defend the police at Antioch against a journalist here who was trying to cover what was going on. There's a real scandal going on here that has to be addressed, and the members of KPFA have to go for an alternative. They have to go for a group, the Rescue Pacifica, that is running. You can go to rescuepacifica.net and you can get our information. And we say we're not going away. We're going to continue the struggle, not here only at KPFA, but at Houston, at WBAI, KPFK in Los Angeles, KPFT in Houston, because we are a network. We've got to defend this network, and we've got to be a vital network. And one of the sad things at this point is millions of people in this country are angry or unhappy. They want to change. They want to fight racism. They want to fight a capitalist system, really, that's destroying the world and destroying this country. And we need to actually build a movement. That's what Pacifica should be doing, of democracy, build a movement to fight for people in this country, free prisoners, political prisoners like Mumia, like many others. And we're going to take this up, we're going to continue this fight, and we ask you to support it.
The Rescue Pacifica candidates are Cheryl Davila, former Berkeley council member, Dr. Navin Gordon, Pathma No to Wars Venasisambi, Edward Escobar, he's from the Alliance for Independent Workers and also a member of the Screen Actors Guild. Steve Zeltzer, Pacifica Media Workers Guild. Elizabeth Milos, I'm a member of UPTI, CWA 9119. Stan Woods is a member of ILWU Local 6, retired. And Rich Stone is the post-APWU and also San Francisco Labor Council delegate. All of the associations are for ID purposes. And basically, well, you're going to probably have this on, right? You're going to have, okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Solidarity, brothers and sisters. Thank you, solidarity. Okay.